Hi, friends. Welcome to the Mobile Bev Pros podcast, a podcast dedicated to providing mobile bar and event professionals with the information they need to succeed. I'm your host, business coach, and founder of the Mobile Bar Academy, Sarah Murphy. In each episode, the Mobile Bev Pros team will bring you industry experts, information, anecdotes, and opinions with the goal of assisting you in building a profitable, sustainable, and successful business that supports you in creating wealth. I'm excited to share with you today's episode, so let's get started. Today on the podcast, we are talking about common mistakes that people make on and with their proposals. And the reason this is a podcast, and I am not giving this information during our Powerful Proposals webinar, is because the webinar became 3 hours long. So I was like, where can I pull out bits and pieces of this so that the webinar itself is super powerful and impactful in the creation and the design of the proposal? And this is part of that. So common mistakes that people make, we're going to talk about now. And then if you're like, okay, great, thanks for telling me all the ways that I've done it wrong, we're going to talk about how to do it right in the Powerful Proposals webinar. And so if you haven't registered for that, do so. The link will be in the show notes. Over 130 people have already registered for the webinar. So if you are interested in attending the webinar live, be sure you get there early because we only have space for 100 people to do this webinar with us live. If you are a enrolled member of the Academy, you always get access to the replay. You will also get access to all of the templates that we are going to be showing you in the webinar if you're a member of the Academy. If you are not a member of the Academy, you still can attend live for free. So this is not something that you miss out on, even if you're not in the Academy, but you will have to attend live. But before we get started on talking about common mistakes that people make with their proposals, we have a little bit of housekeeping to do. And that's really exciting because recently we've only been kind of talking about things that are coming instead of saying, hey, this thing is here. And one of those things is the BREW 2025 Business Revitalization and Empowerment Workshop that we are doing in Old San Juan in Puerto Rico, January 12th through January 15th of 2025. The tickets are live. They went live about 10 days ago to those on the early bird registration list, and we have sold almost 50% of them. So if you are interested in sun, sand, and planning with us come January, grab your passes. You can do so for only $100 deposit. And then you have an option to either pay in full or select our 4-part payment plan and spread it out over the next 4 months. The closer we get to that date, that payment plan will go down. So it's 4 months currently. It'll become 3 months. It'll become 2 months as we get closer if we still have tickets available. So we're really excited that has finally come to fruition. It's been something we've worked really hard on behind the scenes. But some of the things I'm most excited about, one is the offsite, which is a little counterintuitive because obviously the real meat of it is going to be doing the workshop stuff. But I'm really excited about the offsite. We'll do some work prior, the big vision work, the goal setting work, the looking at what we think we could achieve. And before we actually start putting pen to paper and planning on the how, we're going to then kind of take a little break. And you and I both really value that downtime as an important part of the process. I'm excited to put our feet in the sand and just kind of have some casual conversations after the morning of really envisioning what's possible.
Yeah. And though this will not be like camp or like swig, in years past, we've gotten so much love on those intimate fireside chats, those opportunities to connect with other business owners who get how lonely the path is. They have a real understanding for the niche, though BREW is not actually niche specific. And so you'll actually be able to make connections across industries. And that's also going to be immensely valuable. So people really love and value the time to connect with like-minded individuals, other entrepreneurs, and to just spend time with company that gets it. They understand where you're at. They also have similar hurdles. They face similar challenges. And it can just be really nice to be reminded that you're not alone in this journey.
100%. One of the biggest things that we did here after hosting Swig One Camp one, camp two was that people really wanted more opportunities to connect and network with people, which I thought was kind of odd because like there's so much time I thought built into network, quote unquote. But I think what they meant and what I was missing was that real intimacy piece. They don't just want to like get a business card, shake hands. They want to actually have some conversations and sit down and really connect. And so we've built that into this particular retreat. And the offsite is one of the biggest ways that we're going to do that. And we're going to do that on the beach, which I'm really excited about. Also, just really excited to help people uncover the realities around how they got where they are and what needs to be altered in order to get where they're going. And so, yes, this is the planning retreat, which means you're going to walk away with a strategic plan for 2025. It's going to have action items on it. It's going to have due dates. It's going to have the tools and the resources that you need to source in order to accomplish those things. But before we even get to that stage, one of the things that we're doing that I don't think a lot of processes or planning frameworks do is we're going to help people really see the patterns and the stories that got them where they are. And we've all heard what got you here won't get you there. But what does that really mean? It doesn't just mean you have to stop doing the same things that you've always done. It means you have to stop thinking the things that you've always thought and believing the things that you've always believed. And those things are housed in the subconscious and they're much harder to look at and they're much harder to see. And we have tools and exercises that are really going to bring those to light. And we're going to walk people through them in the BREW retreat. So that's another piece that I'm really excited about.
Not to mention, I was built for that. Like this this section of the BREW retreat is and of our masterminds, right? Because we get to do this in the monthly masterminds with the accelerators, which they absolutely love. I think Addison last week in his weekly check-in, hopefully he doesn't mind me sharing, said that he felt like a new person. It was so transformational for him, that conversation. And that's all mindset stuff, right? Like I get to dig in and use my skill sets that I've honed over many years on reflecting back to people their deepest patterns that are limiting them or holding them back and help them create reframes that offer that opportunity for expansive growth. But today, with all that aside, so visit the link is in the show notes, brewretreat.com. It's going to be absolutely epic. Again, almost half the tickets are gone. But today we're talking about common mistakes that people make on proposals. So this is like a 2.5. It's not really a part 3 to the art of the pre-sale, but it's like a 2.5, right?
Yes, absolutely. And the proposal is, in my opinion, like part 3 of the pre-sale process. So why we've started at the end is because one of the parts in the offer, which is part 1, is give them what they want. Because when you give somebody what they want, you're giving them value. People will pay for value. In a good offer, you give them what they want. Then you also provide them what they need because that's what gives people results. And so the proposal is a major pain point in this industry. We hear it all the time. It's why we almost have 150 people registered already for the workshop, and it hasn't been live more than a week. And that's because proposals are a real pain point in this industry. So I'm giving people what they want by starting with proposals. And the truth is that the proposals in this industry are really grim. Now, they're a little bit better than they were when I first started my mobile bar in 2016, because we've had this real rise in software functionality. Honeybook, Dubsado, both of them make it super easy through both templates, but also like certain plugins with Dubsado and improvements on the Honeybook platform in creating real customizable, real pretty template options. And so we've gotten better, but we still see a lot of things that are hindrances or potentially turnoffs for clients. And so we're going to go through just the top 10. The first one, I think it's 10. I haven't actually counted. The first one is lack of personalization. So if you're just sending out the same swipe file, it's a PDF that you've created that has all your different services on it, and it's like a catalog of what's available, and it lacks personalization. So it doesn't use their name, it doesn't reference their specific event, it doesn't call out anything like that you know about them, like their venue, etc. They're not going to have a personal attachment to it. They're not going to see any amount of effort. You're not going to convey that you've really tried all that hard in the proposal process. So first thing that we see that's a big no is just a lack of personalization.
Yes, and the next level of this is unlocked when we really get to know ourselves and our brand and our ideal client so that we can be clear reflections. And so sometimes it's as easy as putting their name at the top of the proposal and making sure that you can templatize all this, but making sure that you insert the correct venue name where needed, right? But also sometimes it can be the way that you story tell is going to resonate and land with a specific client, right? And so personalization is multifaceted.
That actually leads us to the next point there, where the second no-no is a generic one size fits all proposal in vibe. So if you have and use the same proposal for weddings as you do corporate, those have very different pain points they want solved. And so while you can be the same brand, you can have the same font, the same colors, the same tone, the same archetypes, the pain point for those clients is very different. And so if we're using a generic one size fits all proposal for whatever lead comes in the door, you're missing an opportunity to build intimacy by connecting with their deepest desires and the pain point that they're looking to have solved. And so by tailoring each specific proposal to whatever it is, whether you decide that you want to do it by event type, or maybe you do it by time of the year. Maybe this is our Christmas proposal and this is our summer proposal, right? Being customized in how you pitch something is important. This is a kind of a random story, but I remember I had some clients that were getting married in the fall, but they reached out at the height of summer. And at the time, they had gone through and picked from the inspiration menu the cocktails that they want. And we did a cocktail tasting for them. And it was very summery. And I remember at the time, I was like, you guys are having an autumn wedding. We really probably should be looking at like fall cocktails. And I tasted them on a couple. And they were like, no, we're going to go with like the mojito or whatever it was. Then when I had sent them their menu, I had sent them their menu with very fall kind of design, and they saw like mojito on the fall design and they're like, oh my gosh, can we actually get that like autumn apple punch, the spiced rum that you gave us at our cocktail tasting? Because we recognize now that you were right. But like hearing me say that wasn't enough for them. They actually had to see it on the background of a fall inspired menu for it to click with people. And so like that's just the power of kind of what your proposals, when done right and customized to a scenario, how it can really impact the receiver and how they digest that information. The third no-no is the unclear or complicated pricing. Do not make your lead do math, period. If you are sending people a ton of options or you're sending them a bunch of line items, and this includes enhancements that are priced per person per hour or per hour, if they have a total, and then we're saying, oh, but you can also have this, but it depends on duration and guest count, which they may not have solidified yet, right? So now they're having to do variable math. Well, it's this if it's 100 people, if it's this, it's 150 people. They may not have the exact number of hours yet. And so we think it's going to be 5 hours of beverage service, but it might be 4 hours of beverage service. Now they're really unclear on the pricing. And so that enhancement that they had to do the math on is really now just confusing. And a confused mind doesn't buy. And so whenever and however possible, we want the pricing to be very clear and very simple.
This reminds me of like buying a couch. In your living room, you're like, wow, my living room lacks a couch, right? Pain point unlocked. Okay. And so now I may be looking online for couches, but I really like, I'm particular about my couch. Like, I want to sit on the couch. I want to try, I'm like Goldilocks. Like, I want to try them all out. You know what I mean? And so I'm going to go to a showroom. And then I get there and the showroom, I'm still just browsing for a couch. And then I find a couch, but in front of the couch is this wonderful rug, and my floor feels naked now, right? And then on this rug is this wonderful coffee table. Well, now I need a rug and a coffee table, right? But I didn't like walk into my living room and be like, I need an entirely new living room set. the pain point was the couch, and the couch is what actually brought me in. And so the salesperson is going to work with me on the couch, but I've kind of already sold myself on that fancy rug there, you know what I mean? And that nice new coffee table. Sell them what they want and then give them what they need, right? And what I wanted was a couch, but when I got there, I realized that I can't just have a couch. I really actually need a rug and a coffee table to match my new couch.
Yes. And so my preference is to sell you that coffee table and that rug in this example is to sell you the couch first, like have it be sold, like have it be like I put the reserved sign on there. The register's already prepared to make you the owner of that couch. Then we upsell you on these other accoutrements, right? In the fact that you make the small sale first and then you can make the big sale. It doesn't even have to be in the same moment, right? So like you take that couch home or someone decides that they want the base package for their beverage service. And then at a later date, we provide an opportunity for that upsell. And so I like to use the upsell opportunity at the pre-event consultation call. So when I'm going through all the details of their events, I'm pointing out all of the opportunities where we could make this even richer and more delicious by adding on things like a hydration station, or maybe we make a super fancy menu that's made out of plastic, or we do cocktail toppers. Some of them are like super necessary, and some of them are just kind of fun and frilly. And those are, once they say yes to you once, and then you demonstrate yourself trustworthy and awesome to work with, they're more likely to spend more money with you. But we need to make the initial sale. So if they sell you a couch and you have a great experience, they take it to your house and you sit on it and you love it, and then they call you back and they're like, hey, we knew you were looking at that coffee table. We're actually willing to bundle that coffee table and that rug for you. Is that something you'd like to do? We can deliver it Tuesday. You might be like, yes, please, because now my couch is missing these things and I want them. That's a little tactic that I like to utilize, in the fact that when people are trying to sell everything, all the enhancements straight out the gate, it can be overwhelming. What they know is they need a bar service. What they probably don't have a ton of clarity on is all the other pieces. So sell them the base package, the bartenders, the 4 hours of service, the general package that they want, whether it's signature cocktails, full bar, the whole shebang. And then later, let's talk about all those details and sign them up for all of the things that they've dreamt of and pinned on their Pinterest board. The next mistake we see with proposals is no clear call to action. So you've gotten the pricing, you know what the investment level is, you have some things in there about who you are and why people should work with you. They see the investment, but they're not clear on how to move forward. We see this less with people who utilize things like Honeybook and Dubsado because they make this a very seamless process. But if you're not, and we still work with a lot of people who are doing their proposals either in PDF or Excel, or maybe even just sending it out via like a PayPal link. We see that too, or invoicing, that sort of thing. If there's no clear call to action as to, okay, not just how to pay me and sign my contract, what comes next after that, they're less likely to do the thing. They're less likely to pay you and sign the contract if there's a big black hole at the end of, well, what happens now? And we actually call that the onboarding phase. Is something we talked about in depth at our sexy selling workshop in Nashville. But that's the most critical point in time in an experience, is right after someone has paid you their first payment. And if they don't have any sense of what's coming after they pay you, they're less likely to actually pay you. So your proposal should have a very clear call to action, which includes what comes after they give you money.
And make it sexy. Dawn's going to come in and say, make everything sexy, make it taste good, right? Because we saw a proposal recently that had all the next steps. It even had the steps that people had already taken. And the steps were so, hmm, what's the word that I'm going to say? Granular. I'm going to say in depth,
Unsexy.
overwhelming, unsexy. Like they were very long. They had, like, I have a lot to read here. And instead, we want to, like, each step, sure, we want them to know what to expect, but we want them to be expecting something sexy. We want them to be expecting a story, an experience, something that like is tantalizing and like pulls them for right. I think about how like when you're craving like mashed potatoes or something and then you think you're going to get it, you start salivating. Like we want to make people salivate. And so you know they need a bar service. How can you now make them salivate?
Yeah, at the risk of like making this too risque, we want to get their blood pumping, but we don't want to give them so much detail that now they're in their head, right? It's like if someone is going to whisper sweet nothings about what they're about to do to you in your ear and you're going to get excited about it, it's going to stop when they give you so much of the detail that you're like, okay, I get it. Right. Like, I don't need all of that. That's what happens when you go too granular in the this is what comes next or this is what's expected of you, because then we can get into overwhelm and we're using our logic brain because we're like, oh my gosh, am I going to have to remember all of this? Am I going to have to know all of this? And like, we don't want that, right? Like, we want to just give them the little landmarks that are exciting and leave all the tidbits that are not exciting out. We just want to talk about the highlights. We want to talk about the parts that are like the pain relievers that they get excited about. So if we're talking about you're going to sign your contract and you're going to pay the deposit, and then we're going to send an email that is going to tell you the next steps of what we're going to do. Don't worry, we've got it all handled. We'll just keep you in the loop. And 90 days before your event, we're going to talk about all of the dreams that you've put on your Pinterest board so we can ensure that we're on the same page so that we can best represent the event that you want. And then 30 days out, we're going to ensure that your alcohol order is secured and that you have everything that you need. Like, we're just pain relieving now, right? Because they're like overwhelmed and they're, oh, I don't have to handle any of this. Like, they're going to handle all of that. And so when it comes to communicating next steps, keep it high level and make it sexy.
Wale has a song called The Need to Know, like exactly like that. You know what I mean? Like just tell them what they need to know and tell them in a way that makes them feel safe, makes them feel seen, and gives them a little something to like salivate over. But you don't want to go out and like give them every single detail because even after they've paid you, if there's too much on the plate, to your point, they're going to be overwhelmed by it, right? And then it's just not sexy. And you want this entire, we're trying to get a 5-star review here. We want the entire experience to be like one big, delicious dessert.
Amen. The next thing that we see is a lack of visual appeal. So let's remember that a picture's worth 1,000 words, and our subconscious brains process way more information than our conscious brains. And it speaks through imagery, it speaks through color, it speaks through symbolism, it speaks through vibe. And so all of that is through the visual design. That part cannot be overlooked. If you just send a Word document with bullet points in Arial font, you'll have turned no one on. So big no-nos here are text-heavy proposals without engaging visuals. And we'll actually talk about this portion really in depth in the workshop, the webinar. So I'm not going to go any further into that other than if you're not already doing that, that's a big no-no. The next mistake that we see on proposals is the lack of addressing potential concerns. And we don't have to do that in a way that calls out the fact that you might be concerned about someone getting arrested for drinking and driving. Like, we don't want to do that. That might be a legitimate concern that someone has, but we do want to reassure them, to your point, like make them feel safe in our messaging by communicating trust. And we can do that by reflecting back to them how trustworthy we are. Literally, if you tell someone you can trust us in your proposal, they are psychologically more likely to trust you. I don't know why, but studies have shown that if you tell someone that you can trust me, you are more likely to trust them. And you can also do that through framing of expertise. We help people avoid common pain points with sourcing mobile bar companies by doing the following things, being the following way, right? So we are great communicators. We pay great attention to detail. This is alleviating pain points without you having to say, you're probably afraid that someone's going to drop the ball, right? We don't have to frame it that way to help alleviate potential pain points. Another mistake that we often see on proposals is not including social proof. And some people are like, well, they're going to know that if I put it on there, that it's going to be good, right? Like, you only use testimonials that are good. So does it really have a big impact? It does. It does, as a matter of fact. And so including social proof or testimonials or case studies in your proposal will help alleviate any potential concerns or worries that they have, especially if you're using testimonials that are relevant to the proposal. So if it's a corporate event and use corporate testimonials, awesome. If it's an event that was in a barn and the testimonial was in a barn, awesome, because people see themselves reflected in that testimonial. And so they're going to take on some of the feelings that that client had when they left that testimonial. The next mistake that we see in proposals is poor quality writing. And we are going to talk about this in depth in the proposal workshop as well, the powerful proposal workshop as well. So I'm not going to go too deep, but I do want to reflect that your copy matters. Your copy and your imagery may be the two things that matter most in business. Operations is important, but you'll never even get to the point of executing if you don't master your visuals and your copy, your messaging. And so it's of no surprise that this is on here. But if you have spelling errors, grammatical errors, incomplete sentences, run-on sentences, maybe you have great copy, but you don't break it up in a way that the eye wants to read it or likes to read it, people aren't going to read it. And so your copy matters, both how you say things and what you say matters.
As someone who does a lot of copywriting, I can attest to this. And one of the things that we recognize is that the audience that you're going after has a preference, and you have to be able to speak their language. And so if you are going after the premium, ultra premium, or luxury market, we assume that they have some level of either self-education or institutional education. And so when you are using words incorrectly, that's a huge red flag. Every single line that I put into an email, I ask myself, what's the purpose of this sentence? Every single sentence. And if the sentence has no purpose, I take it out. The other thing, and you can look at our emails. If you guys are on our email list, then you see me write copy all the time and you can take a look at them. The eye wants to scan. And I'm going to start by scanning every email I open. And if something catches my eye, I might read the entire thing. But for the most part, I'm just going to scan it. You want to make bold statements where you want a bold statement. You don't want just like bold all over the place, right? It's a skill that you learn over time. I sent out an email today. When I went back and read it to myself the fifth time after I had already sent it, I found 2 typos. Not a big deal. We're not asking for perfectionism here, but typos are not something that I do a lot of. You know what I mean? Our audience, they're not like unforgiving because of the typos, but the entire body was powerful. So they're probably going to forgive that one typo. But if you're just like using a word incorrectly consistently, right, that's going to devalue your brand. It's going to discredit you.
And context matters too, because an email is more, especially the way we do email, it's an informal conversation. A proposal is very formal. This is me formally presenting to you what I promise to provide, the value I provide to create in exchange for this large sum of money. And so it's less forgiving because this is a pivot point. This is a point where either I say yes or I say no. When we're doing emails, we're layering yeses on top of each other or potentially no's, right? Our intention is to build a relationship, to build intimacy, to allow people to see context. We do short form and long form emails. Proposals are very curated. And so the bar is much higher when it comes to a proposal.
And so have somebody to check behind you, right? Because for emails, we used to have our VA like read through them before I sent them out. And she just wasn't finding like a lot of pivotal errors, right? And so that was ended up just being a waste of resources. But if you and I were going to send, and we've done this, we had a huge one-to-one client that we sent a massive proposal to. And that was a process of not just checking the grammatical errors and mistakes, but also like the visualizations, right? And even the proposals that we created for the webinar, we did those together. Like I created a template and I sent it to you, and then you changed it and put your magic on it, and then you sent it back to me. And then I was like, okay, this looks funny. I like this one better. Let's use this font. And then I sent it back to you, and you're like, oh, okay, well, I'm actually going to change this thing, right? And so if you don't have that in your business and it's just you, maybe find a friend or someone, find a grammar Nazi, your local grammar Nazi, and ask them to review the proposal prior to sending it out. Another great way to do this is to get into the accelerator, where you have monthly business reviews that you can submit, because Sarah can check behind you on not just the grammar, but also the vibe you're trying to convey. We can check that the spacing is accurate, that you're creating trust, that you're demonstrating your legacy. And so that's also available. If you don't have somebody in your back pocket that's going to help you level up your proposals or what have you, your website, the accelerator is a great outlet for that.
On that note, the last business review I did on a proposal was 20 minutes long. And I do video reviews of everything that gets submitted. It was a 20-minute long feedback on proposals. So I have lots to say on this topic. And so if you're like, I'm not sure if my proposal is great or not, I certainly will let you know. And I love doing those because this is something that I'm super passionate about. The other thing that I want to mention about this is that, again, I feel like it's important that I remind people that we're coming at it from the assumption that the people listening to this and who value what we're offering here in way of feedback are premium businesses or higher. So if you are a bartender only shop, if you are budget market that does more volume and is focused on doing more quantity of events, and not necessarily looking to close those high dollar events, then you would probably waste a bunch of time and resources if you were to put this much thought into every single proposal that you're sending out. When we're giving this feedback, this is the feedback that's going to help close. Like Addison just closed, was an $11,000 deal, and then they were adding stuff on through this process, through the process of creating and curating proposals that by the time they get to the investment piece that says $11,000, they're like, well, obviously this is a no-brainer. Like, where take my money, right? Because you've already sold them through all of the pieces above it. And so if Addison had sent that proposal to somebody with grammatical errors and low quality images and bullet points and no storytelling, less likely to close it. Not saying you wouldn't, because crazier things have happened. But best practice is that we don't want to make any of the mistakes we've talked about so far. And then the last one, we'll just throw it in here because there's only one left, and that is not differentiating yourself from competitors. Now, we've said this in a slightly different way earlier on. This looks like being yourself, being authentic, being clear about who you are, what you do, who you serve, about using consistent imagery, about reflecting back to your client the pain points that your offer is specifically designed to solve and the value that you are creating. That is what is going to make you different than all of your competitors, but you need to be clear about that in your proposal, because if the proposal that they look at from your main competitor looks identical to yours, what are they going to assess these proposals on? Price. If there's no other differentiation between the two other than color and logo, they're going to look at price to make that call. And we don't want that. We want you to sell yourself through all of the non-monetary bits and pieces in that proposal so that by the time they get to that investment, it doesn't even matter what the differences in price are.
Your differentiator is not your bar. It's not your rig. It's not your rig. Your differentiator is not your rig. Did I say that yet? It's not your rig. Listen, if you are like, well, what is my differentiator? This is one of the great powers of entrepreneurship, is that it requires great self-reflection. Any business that you build, mobile bar or otherwise, requires you to get to know yourself on a new level. And through that process of self-reflection, of leveling up, of knowing your edges, knowing your shadows, knowing your desires, knowing your passions, you can then start to form a business entity, which is just you externalized, right? A business entity that has a unique essence in the same way that you have a unique essence, right? No two thumbprints are the same. No two snowflakes are the same. If you're building a generic business for the mass market, this isn't even the podcast for you. So like, I'm not even sure why you're here. But if you are here for premium clients, ultra premium luxury clients, step one is know thyself. I feel like we have a podcast on that elsewhere, don't we? Know thyself, because when you learn about who you are, your business entity becomes more and more unique in the same way that you're more and more unique. And so entrepreneurship is a great outlet for self-reflection, self-development, personal development, and even self-healing to some degree, really starting to understand what makes you unique and what makes you art, and then letting your business have that as well. That becomes your differentiator. And then it's obvious and it's not lost in things like my rig is my business or my proposal looks like everybody else's, because it won't. It's going to look like someone who was unique crafted something that was unique.
This gets a little challenging when everyone's using HoneyBook and you're presenting your pricing using the same templates that everyone on HoneyBook is doing. They're just structuring it a little bit different, right? And so you really have to infuse all the visual elements in your business with your proprietary visual elements, and you have to customize things at a high level. And yes, that means you might have to get someone to set up your HoneyBook or your Dubsado. And yes, it might mean that you have to pay someone to do your website. But again, when you are trying to go after the premium market, these investments are what set you apart. These investments are what make it very clear that you take yourself seriously, you take your business seriously, you're investing in your imagery, you're investing in your copy, you're investing in the tools of the trade, which yes, your business and your CRM are both tools of the trade. And so while you don't have to do this straight out the gate, we have a podcast on how to do this on under $5,000. And you can start there. But we want you polishing your copy and polishing your imagery and polishing who you are, what you do, how you serve, what your values are. And so it's not supposed to be like, boom, I woke up today and here I am and everything is humming along brilliantly. It is a process, but we're always going to reflect back to you what's available to you next. And it usually looks like investing in yourself, whether that's through self-reflection, which is an investment, whether that's in coaching or mentoring, whether that's in a retreat, whether that's in software, whether that's in expert services that are offered that will help take your business to that next level. All of those investments feel big and scary, but they're what's going to help you become a more concentrated and potent business. Because oftentimes when we see people struggling to get to that next level, it's not because they haven't gone wide enough, it's they haven't gone deep enough. And so if you like things deep, you're in the right place, because we're going to continue to ask you to go deeper. It's not enough to just throw together a proposal. We want you to throw together a powerful proposal. So sign up for the webinar if you haven't already. It's July 9th at 1 p.m. Central Time.
And it's going to be absolutely amazing. It's going to be a full house. We only have capacity for 100 live participants. We are already well over that for registrants. The replay will only be made available to Academy members. And so if you can't make it or you want access to the replay, you can hop into the Academy. That's one of the many glorious resources that are housed inside. And so I'll make sure and drop that link in the show notes, as well as the link to BREW, the 2025 retreat. Another awesome episode. Thank you, Sarah, so much for having me on. We'll see you guys on the next one.
And that wraps up today's episode. I hope it was valuable. I would love to hear from you what you thought. You can drop me a line at hello@mobilebevpros.com or find me on Instagram at mobilebevpros. If you're looking for more valuable mobile bar related content, we have a website full of it. You can find us at www.mobilebevpros.com. And I'd love to see you in our Facebook community, also by the name of, you guessed it, Mobile Bev Pros. Thank you for joining me today, and until next time, cheers.